I wanted to focus on today's first reading from Paul's letter to the Colossians. Notice how he encourages his readers to set their minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. And basically what he's really saying is what Christ himself had said, lay up for your treasures in heaven, not on earth. In other words, seek the things of heaven, the good things of heaven. Now we might say, well, what are the good things of heaven? And basically, to seek to have a high degree of glory in heaven, what is it that will help us to attain to a high degree of glory in heaven? Practicing love, acts of charity, acts of self-sacrifice, all of these things will help us to attain greater heavenly glory. And the obstacle to all of these things is our sinfulness, our attachment to sinful things, but also our attachment to worldly things. So notice that St. Paul, he goes on to say, put to death, therefore, whatever in you is earthly, fornication, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry. So he's really referring to more serious sins here, but then he goes on to say, but you must get rid of all such things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another. So even venial sins or less serious sins. Now some of these that he mentioned, for example, anger and wrath, it's part of the 7 deadly sins. Recall that the 7 deadly sins are not mortal sins in and of themselves. But if a person perseveres in giving in to those sins, eventually it could lead to mortal sins, such as anger and wrath. So the ideal is a person strives to overcome their anger, their desire for vengeance, their desire for wrath. And sometimes, as we know, that's difficult. And our Lord, a number of times he addresses the importance of forgiving others, letting go of anger, basically. So it's one thing to let go of anger, it's another thing to forgive, which doesn't mean that you're going to get back into a good relationship with that person. Sometimes we forgive someone, but we say, okay, I'm not going to hang around with that person anymore, which is okay. But letting go of that anger. So we're prone to anger because we have a sense of the injustice that has been committed against us, so we're angry because of that. We also have a sense of our own dignity, and we recognize that what the person did to us was unjust because of our own sense of dignity. Sometimes the unfortunate thing is that we are also prone to pride. And when we are prone to pride, the resentment that we feel will actually be greater than the resentment we would feel if we were less proud or if we were humble. So it's important that we acknowledge that we are proud. And when we think of ourselves being treated inappropriately, it's sometimes good for us to compare ourselves to Christ. Christ was treated inappropriately. He was mocked, he was ridiculed, he was basically killed, right? And what we suffer is nothing in comparison to what he suffered, and yet he was willing to forgive. So we need to imitate him, try to imitate him, but we also need to ask him to give us the grace that we need to be able to forgive. And it's important that we keep striving to forgive, even though sometimes it may take a while to be able to do so. Now notice in today's gospel reading, we are presented with the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you hungered now. Blessed are you who weep now. Blessed are you when people hate you, and so on and so on. And it's interesting that these Beatitudes are the very opposite of what worldly people would expect. So why would it be a blessing to be poor, to be hungry, to be weeping or mourning? And basically what our Lord is saying is, look, if you suffer in this world, if you are treated badly, if you experience hunger or just poverty, it's a blessing. Why is this a blessing? Because the less money you have, the less possessions you have, the less you are attached to the things of this world. Now, it's true sometimes when people are poor, they have a very strong desire for wealth, and they fixate on that, and that's not good. But by experiencing these difficulties, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because a person who is deprived of riches, he's not going to be living it up. He's more likely to turn to God. Same as when we mourn or are weeping or are persecuted, we're more likely to turn to God. The person who is very successful, who has a lot of wealth, has good health, and everything seems to be going well, they're just going to focus on living it up in the world, enjoying worldly things, laying up for themselves earthly treasures, which is the opposite of what our Lord wants us to do. He wants us to lay up heavenly treasures. So being deprived of worldly goods, not enjoying the world as much as we would like, or experiencing difficulties, pain and suffering on account of the things of this world, is really a blessing in disguise. When someone hurts us, it's an opportunity for us to grow in virtue, to grow in love by practicing forgiveness. So this is what our Lord is saying. Fill up or lay up for yourselves heavenly riches. St. Paul is saying the same thing. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth.